Humanity is at the crossroads of choice, and your choice matters. Our beloved Gaia, in harmony with the universe, is calling for humanity to choose love. Unify with voices around the world for the March Equinox 2022 moment. The answer to the call for all voices to come together as one. The energy of balance and restoration is the essence of the March Equinox. The unified intention of love is calling us all together to receive and share the inspired wisdom on behalf of all humanity. Coming to you from the center of our beloved planet Earth and current home of planetary Kundalini, the Andes Mountains of Ecuador. 3 days of sacred ceremony with lineage holders from around the planet, delivering a unified message for all. Artists, performers, and live music from around the world. This wondrous festival is a homecoming for humanity's heart. Join the live stream, learn more, and register at unifyingvoices.world.
Hey there, unifyingvoices.world.
Please visit the website and reserve your place to be part of this great family gathering.
And in case you didn't know, that's wisdom teacher Sri Ramka, and I'm Master Lady Kira Ra, and we are so honored to be here with you right now. This is an auspicious moment. This is a big moment for humanity. We are going to jump right in. And as we do, we sincerely want to open today by bringing all of our hands to all of our hearts right now. And in this moment, invoking the master that you are, because we're going to talk about the consciousness of the planet and the March revelations. In this moment, I am here as the Sea of Neutrality, holding the higher energy of the frequency of consciousness so that all may be served. And in this moment, I do want to offer just a blessing out to the entire planet, that in this moment, we are being invited to a greater level of mastery, and together we are better.
Indeed. And as we gather together as a community of awake, loving beings, let's take a moment and command our presence right here, right now, in present time. Hand on heart.
There it is.
Beautiful conscious breath. Now let's add the Ave Sa. I recognize the divine energy on the inhale, and I release all need to control. To see the divine and to relax into the trust of that recognition.
So we are excited to be relaxing into the trust of you. And remember that if you're tuning in over at YouTube, official Sri and Kira over at YouTube, hope you've subscribed already. Make sure that you go ahead, and if you have any questions that you would like to get to Sri and I personally, pop them into the chat, because Jess Juntanen is over there and she's our kind of our go-between. She's going to be texting over things to us, and we are very, very honored. I do want to share that we're going to open up. We're going to get to those March revelations and predictions. So many things to share, the ascended numerology and the levels of consciousness and the way this is navigating. I want to open with this fabulous sharing, Sri, because Jess sent this one in early, and Ami sent it in from, it came in from our support main email. And this came in this morning. And it's a letter from one of you, our beloved community. And so, Sri, would you like to read it? Or would you like me to read it? I'm going to let Sri read it. So there we are. It starts right there. So, and the reason that we're opening with this, and the reason that Jess shared it with me, because we get so many beautiful emails, was because this literally was like you were reading our minds as we were coming together into today's show. It really kind of sets the stage.
So here is her sharing.
And you want to read the whole thing.
Okay.
All right.
It begins like this. Well, density is certainly acting up.
Right?
Last night I got very weepy thinking about the children in the Ukraine, even imagining what it must be like knowing your young son will be fighting. I wasn't so much equipped with any fear, but I will certainly confess to a huge wave of sorrow washing over me. How can one not be affected by such a pain? As I was lying in bed contemplating how to tap into my mastery, I clicked on the Shri and Kira app, and there, boldly, were the words, "You are ready." Right after, as I was going through photos looking for the 7 polarities sheet, I came upon something I had a screenshot from December 13th, Monday Magic. As one can expect, it was totally and completely what I needed to read. Density doesn't make it easy. But you're right. When we trust in the universe, we manifest exactly what we need and what we seek. Thank you for providing the peace that I needed and the tools to recenter myself in joy, trust, truth, and the I am presence. Whenever I get cocky and feel like I can do it alone, the universe always shows me that together we are better.
Yes, right?
Again, my profound thanks. I can't imagine this experience not being able to travel this journey with you. So thank you, Suzanne.
Well, this is from Suzanne. And Suzanne, the first thing that I want to share with you is thank you for making the choice.
Yes.
Because let us not forget, and I'm going to go right to, because we need to jump in, there is just so much to share. I'm going to go right to the February up level calendar, and you'll see where we are today, right now. We are at the Mercury retrograde post-phase completion. And I want to ask how many of you the past week have felt like it was still Mercury retrograde, like it was having its last hurrah. I know that more than once last week, I was like, is it Mercury retrograde? And of course, it's Mercury dancing with all of us, because remember, February 16, hopefully you've been catching this show every Sunday. If not, you've got to go back and get caught up. February 16, this past Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, 16th Wednesday, was the ignition of the full crystalline moon energy that opened up that choice that is going to suspend like a bridge from February 16 to April 16. Now, this is really, really important, especially as we gaze at today, because with that Mercury retrograde finally saying, I'm good now. Everything is set. Whatever how many times have you had to redo something or a final release? Perhaps there were a few connections you were trying to put together. They've either come together or they have not. And this was that week. And this week right now is when that which is real is moving forward. That which is coming into your life right now, that which is entering into this post-retrograde energy, that for those that have said yes to the choice, because remember what was February in our ascended levels of consciousness, the way that we are constantly cycling through our ascended experience is our expanded consciousness, is awareness, experience, choice. Well, our months track with that as well. So look where we are, guys. Look at our March calendar. Here we are. So the first thing I want you to notice is that massive Merkaba. Now, the reason I want you looking at that is the Merkaba of Self-Ascension. And that is 2022. Remember, this is the entire year. And I'm going to talk more about that as a reminder in a moment. However, we have a lot happening this month, and this month is all about the fact that not only is the individual month itself a 6, which is that energy of the spinning Merkaba, March 2022 is actually the 12 plus the 0. This is unity. This is about unification, unity, sacred union, you. It is a month that is literally brimming with the energy of mastery completion, and that which is ready is now moving into greater motion, and that which has been hiding will absolutely be seen for what it is. And you can see that it's all about starting on Tuesday the 15th through the 22nd. Those 7 days specifically have an opportunity to propel humanity in ways that have never happened before. And remember that the equinox, many people believe the equinox is the 21st. That's actually a convenient calendar trick. And of course, World Water Day is also the 21st. The real equinox is actually at 10:33 a.m. because when I made this calendar, we were in a different time zone, so forgive me. But the actual exact equinox is at 10:33 a.m. on Sunday, the 20th, in the energy of the amplified, up-leveled crystalline moon again.
Yes.
Remember that full crystalline moon opened up. So we want to talk about this because it brings us to the consciousness discussion and exactly what's happening on the planet right now. So you're gazing at, and we opened up with that letter from Suzanne. And remember, you can put we will answer any question you want to ask. We still have a lot more to share about the month ahead. But in this moment, February 16 was in a month that was in ascended consciousness of choice. And we're still here today, February 27, tomorrow, in that moment where that Mercury retrograde post phase has finally said, you're good to go. What have you remembered? What have you called in, right? What have you released? And what are you ready for? Because your soul this March is calling loudly. I mean, really, really loudly, because this month is also the first of the 4 harmonic gates of 2022 anchoring. So it's all about consciousness and literally the war on consciousness, which we have been talking about. And I don't enjoy using those words. So I'm just going to say the navigating of that, which is going to have the conscious command of your conscious awareness. So the February collective choice and these conscious up levels, remember, 2022 is the year where every full moon is like that bell gonging, yes, right? Every bell is an up level, and we're in a double crystalline harmonic. February 16 to the March 16 to the April heart moon. So consciousness right now is the key. I am here holding the energy of the Sea of Neutrality. Love them, they know not what they do. Forgive them, they know not what they do, is the energy of that which is in conscious remembrance of the response ability once anchored in the transcendent state of the bigger picture. And that's why consciousness is the key right now. And that's why my beloved husband, we started sharing with you about what Shri's deeper work and the way he's been working with this consciousness evolution. I think a lot of people want to know, how did we get here? What's happening with this consciousness this week on the planet right now, Shri? I mean, he's been doing a lot of fascinating experiences around this. So let's talk about this.
Well, this is indeed a rich conversation.
It is, and an important one.
We'll do some nuggets here to stimulate recognitions, because the purpose of words is to communicate that which is true.
Right.
That's the highest purpose for having vocabulary, to be able to contribute to the beauty, to contribute to the truth, the wisdom, the discernments of human beings. Anything other than that is a manipulation or a distortion, using words to distract, pull, or create agendas. So when we have a positionality on the planet, and what we mean by positionality is a faction. So this faction could be a political party or a country. When that positionality says, hey, I wish to impose that I am centered around, I wish to impose my will on you,
right?
Then there is, of course, an immediate opposite reaction, because positionality demands response. It's subject-object.
And remember, I want to jump in because this is also part of those 7 polarities of free will. And that moment, it's trust or fear.
Yes.
Trust or fear, trust or fear. And through those choices, those 7 polarities express themselves again. And Shri, as you're starting to talk about this, and we're going to talk about the governments as well, I want to put up one more time the March calendar, to something that I didn't share because I wanted to first bring your attention to this crystalline moon, but something you might have seen and I haven't talked about, but I want you to understand as Shri starts sharing is this very week, a lot happens. Look at this week, guys. Look at here. What you're gazing at Sunday right now, that is where we're at, the 27th. So if you were to superimpose, that is the complete release of the post-retrograde phase. But then look at the first and look at tomorrow. We are already entering, the Merkaba will affect everything because the Merkaba is spinning. And remember, last week's show, those of you that were at Monday Magic, are you spinning the Merkaba of self-sabotage, or are you here? Are you in this energy of the Merkaba of self-ascension? Because it's like right now today, you're getting this go with this release of the retrograde post phase. Then we immediately tomorrow, we're already in the Merkaba ascension. By Tuesday, we're in our greatest vision coming forward again, showing itself. Wednesday, the illuminated new moon comes in, and that energy moves into Saturday the 5th. And I want to bring your attention here because this is major. It has never been a factor in the up level experience before. And so far, it's only a factor right now. March 5th, this Saturday, before we're together again next week, the superior conjunction of Jupiter comes forward. And with that superior conjunction, remember that it is bringing with it an amplification. It is, the first of these 4 harmonic gates. And this is what I've been talking about, these harmonic gates of 2022. It's going to anchor through this illuminated new moon energy in the release of the post-retrograde phase as the superior junction of Jupiter comes forward. And so this is the moment when I am the Sea of Neutrality smiles at these moments before us in the full realization that the awareness, because remember, it's an awareness month, illuminating your choice. The awareness is the grace to see and to take action from the ascended realms. And as this superior conjunction of Jupiter arrives on the 5th, it will once again call in the double of the 6, the energy of the amplification, the 12. This is the Sea of Neutrality saying, are you ready to carry the consciousness to sustain me? And all consciousness is spinning in this Merkaba. And this is why understanding the consciousness and how this consciousness is factoring in to this superior conjunction of Jupiter is massive, because we know the power of the Jupiter energy, especially as density is trying to navigate the energy of the destruction rather than the construction. The energy of the or densified realms or the ascended consciousness. And so, Shri, I really want you to walk us through this, because I think given what we're looking at in March, it's important that we turn to how do we move through this as I am here as the Sea of Neutrality, and how can we navigate our own, like the woman who wrote in the beginning, she used her tools. And I think the tool right now is the tool of consciousness through conscious
Absolutely.
awareness.
It's important to recognize that every being is on a journey. All paths are sacred because all paths are the lifetime of the incarnation of a sacred essence that we call the soul, your divine mastery, incarnating through these beautiful bodies, having this experience here on earth. So from one point of view, and remember, perspective creates context, creates a reality. So from one point of view, we took birth here to evolve, did we not? I mean, we incarnated here to awaken. So from that perspective, everything going on this planet is wondrous and beautiful because it contributes to the awakening. Even those things that cause that wave of sadness, that wave of perhaps even despair or fear. Remember, emotions are just that. E, energy in motion. They are not your definition. They are an experience that came forward based upon a point of view. And so we love our emotions, and at times they drown us. However, they are nothing more than energy in motion that creates an experience that reflects a perspective. So I don't want to get too intellectual here, but I want you to be able to take a breath and step back and go, wait a minute, I am a divine being having a human experience. When we, to whatever level you can, when you step into the grandest context that you trust, you are on the right path for you. Or as the ascended ones teach, to be able to look at yourself and see yourself at your highest expression for this lifetime calls that expression into manifestation. When we are unable to trust, see, and our highest expression, then we are kind of flying blind. We may get there, but it's going to be a longer journey.
So tell me about the levels of consciousness and how you've been working with that.
So what I have been doing is watching individuals, countries, and events and looking at the interplay.
For over 20 years.
Well, there are stories here, but, back in the 1990s when I first was introduced to David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force was his first book, and it was groundbreaking because he introduced not only the truth that power is based on light and love, force is based on fear and domination, and that we are groomed when we grow up to believe that force is power. But it's not. The true power is the energy of love and light. And that is the power of creation.
Right?
That is the power of manifestation. You cannot force anything to be. Its beingness came from another source, did it not? And so humanity has been in a soup of delusion for millennia. And in fact, at the time of the Buddha and the Christ, these avatars that took birth on the planet, the average level of consciousness on the planet was about 100.
Shri, let's help them understand that better. Shri has this fabulous, I know you have it here somewhere, honey. I'll let you put it up.
Sure.
But here you go. This will help you understand. This is my husband's work alongside of the work of David Hawkins.
And so if you look at the gift that Hawkins brought forward was to give us a yardstick to have a point of conversation. And so from 0 to 600 is his primary working zone. His scale goes to 1,000, but 600, you've arrived at a very saintly, beautiful, illuminated place. But look down here at 100, where the planet was at the time of Christ, Buddha, and later Muhammad, is the energies were guilt, shame, apathy, fear, and grief. Those were the dominant energies that people were experiencing.
And remember, we're talking about the overall experience of consciousness. So the planetary consciousness, which would be that which was going or shedding into the planetary thought body. That's why we're putting this up, so you can have an idea of how this is coming together. And you can see on the left all of the work of self-ascension and how that collates to this.
So this red line is right there at 200. And at 200, people do not know the difference between truth and falsehood. People are unable to discern that which is life-affirming from that which is life-defeating. So 200 is a magic line. And while the planet as a whole was about 100, 2,000 years ago, it began to lift and grow slowly and steadily, hanging out just below 200 until the late 1980s.
So breathe that in and imagine that. Humanity as a whole was hanging out right around there until the late 1980s. And you might say, all right, Shri, well, help me understand that. What happened in the late 1980s?
Well, in the late 1980s, there was not only a karmic dispensation, but there was the harmonic convergence. 1987, people began to awaken more fully. The age of Aquarius, the songs of the times, the movements of the times. Now, I want to say something. This is very important. An average is just that.
Right.
There are those who are leading the wave and those that are trailing. And this is the nature. We all start in different places. We grow at different places and paces in our world. So an average isn't really that useful, except it gives you a flavor for a country or a something, a group. So there were many beings holding higher levels. In fact, a couple of our favorites, Albert Einstein, for example, was alive then, back or leading up to that, and Einstein calibrates at 499, which is right at the threshold of love. And what's interesting is the brilliance of this man and what he brought forward was still rooted in subject object positionality, rooted in the Newtonian paradigm, as are most people. When we hit 500 on Hawkins' scale, we are now in what he refers to as love, and we're moving out of causality into spontaneous manifestation, into flow. And this is why it's so important, because there are many of you listening, tuning in right here, right now, that touch and can dance with those frequencies. How many of the people that are on the news or written great books, etc., talk about, fear versus love? Well, the reality is that love is a frequency that, when held, creates an environment for a spontaneous rebalancing.
And I want to share something, because this brings us to when you're gazing at the conscious frequency of people and a conscious frequency of those that are seeking to control through any institution, be it a government, a religion, whatever, anything that seeks to put a constraint upon that which you are, is always going to be met with the level of consciousness that is creating it. This is why it is, and Einstein really said it so well, that you're absolutely not going to be able to solve these things with the consciousness that created them.
Yes.
And that is where humanity is at. I trust that you're part of our newsletter and that you got this morning's newsletter. Sri and I included in there that we know that there are many people on the planet right now that are asking a lot of questions and that are afraid and that are not sure what to trust or believe. And this is exactly what the 7 polarities of free will, as we have arrived at the top of that ascension escalator here in 2022, this is exactly what the polarities of free will had hoped for. Shri, would you put up the polarities chart? So Shri and I, and we want to bring this up because we did use the word World War III. We put this chart out back in 2015 and taught. And if you want to learn more about it, we still have this class. It's really cheap. It's at our website. Just go get it, and taught about the coming time and how we, as consciousness evolving, and we are here in this extraordinary moment, is that fear or trust are what's before us. And if you gaze at the 2021, it was all about authority and power through dogma and intimidation. And, or, right, on the other side there, planetary and life enhancing shared resources.
Yes.
And so what I will share is that here at Tosa Blue Mountain, as a prototype for the world, and we're moving forward with this right now in Mexico and in Guatemala, we're talking to people in Bali, we're talking to people in Thailand. We are going around the world saying there is a moment where you have to choose, and that's what February has been about, the consciousness that you are meeting this with.
Yes.
And the Yoga of Self-Ascension is based upon the ignition of your torus field of creation, where you are able to become one with the master that you are in conscious awareness of this experience of density. And we have a question that came in and said, well, what does dense energy mean? And so we have other questions, but that one just seemed really relevant in this moment. So we want to talk about that, because dense energy is that which seeks to keep you engaged in the questions of, who do I trust? What do I do? And I think it brings us right back to your model, Sri. Let's pop that up again.
Yeah, let's explore this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the
what is dense energy?
So if you take a look here on the left side in the 300s, density, right, consciousness, evolving. Take a look at the qualities associated with that broad section. courage, trust, optimism, forgiveness. Those are the evolving energies. But everybody is elastic. You can devolve as well.
Remember, it's a spiral. It's always a spiral.
So this is so critical.
Really critical to understand. And this person's saying, I'm new to this. Help me understand this.
So density consciousness, from one point of view, is just simply mass consciousness. This is the lowest common denominator of societies and human beings.
And you're born into that. This is that pyramid of spiritual awakening, right? So go to our website for sure, ShriNkara.com. Lots of things you can read and learn about this more. But density consciousness is the consensus reality that your divine presence through the sacred sequence of incarnation is here to evolve with, through, and as. It's a gift, and you're here because you're starting to wake up through it.
So density consciousness is really the starting point.
And we all start there. No one's immune. If you have a body, you've got density consciousness.
There's many beings that say, I'm happy with this. I'm going to support it. I'm going to live it. I'm going to demonstrate it. And you get to go, thank you for showing me that.
So glad you're here.
That was your choice.
Right.
And my choice, personally, I'm not speaking for you, my choice is to continue to uplift and evolve into full recognition of the truth.
Exactly.
And so the thing I want to, sometimes, and I never got this from David Hawkins, which is why I'm going to write another book on taking it forward. We are elastic.
Yes.
You have the ability to be as dense as you've ever been. You can be Attila the Hun or whatever. You have that ability in your consciousness to be really dense. You also have the capacity to be truly illuminated and loving. And this elasticity in our levels of consciousness explains why sometimes you can go to a weekend workshop, you can have a beautiful, blissful experience, and you are vibrating really at such a wonderful, sublime level. And then you walk back home and get into your job or whatever your pattern is, and you come right back into the harmonic zone that created that.
If you want. See, this is the conscious choice. I gotta jump in here because that's,
Or you go, wait a minute, I'm more informed. I don't choose to stay there any longer. And we begin to navigate out of those prior unconscious commitments.
I want to read to you a little bit. If you've got our e-cards, then you've already read this. But Shri and I wrote this morning and sent it out to you. And I really want to read this to you, Shri, because it really is what Shri is saying. So it's in our e-card, but I'm just going to read. And it starts with, we sincerely hold the consciousness of a different life for those who choose. Yeah. And we have been doing this for 20 years publicly and can absolutely validate the law of instantaneous manifestation. And so consciously co-creating through harnessing the law of instantaneous manifestation and having the light that you want is something that everyone deserves. Everyone can do it and everyone deserves it. And most importantly, this is something that you can honestly achieve.
Yes.
This isn't pie in the sky. And so it doesn't matter what your educational background is, what color you are, what religion you are, where you grew up. None of that matters, because virtually anyone can create a truly abundant and positive life experience if, and that's the if, right? If they work with a simple set of fundamental spiritual basics. So you're saying, I'm new to this. Okay, so what are those? Well, what they are is, number one, steadfast commitment, focused awareness, and complete trust. Right? If you're in our YouTube channel, go find the Spiritual Essentials. We put out a video on this, but one of the things is, there it is. That is the spiritual basic, because that's what calls in that framework of support, the sacred union of the you and the you, where everything comes into harmonic balance and you are the 0 point energy generator. And so what happens, how do you get there? How do you sustain that? Well, that's what the 4 steps of self-ascension are. And they're very, very simple. It's number one, surrender. And it's really surrendering what you think surrender looks like. It's just saying the mantra of self-ascension. Really, for me, that's what surrender is. It's I am here, I am ready, I am open, guide me. It's the laying down of the ego that would seek to stop the you from having the most extraordinary, incredible, blessed life experience possible, because it's why you're here. And why not do it now, right? So that's the surrender. Then the next one is to release the judgment. And that always begins with the self. And when we release the judgment, we can finally actually feel and receive unconditional love, because you will never love anyone more than you are able to love yourself. And through that, we are able to be in union, thereby in the attractor field where all comes forward.
Yes.
And so that's the way through it. And again, if you want to learn more about that, two things you need to do immediately. Number one, make sure you register for Monday Magic. And that's part of the second thing that you can do when you get to ShriandKara.com and get all that information. There are practices you can do. There is a free ebook. There is all of this, and it's all free. So just get to ShriandKara.com and give yourself the gift of acquiring these tools, right? And that's what Monday Magic is about. I want to remind you all that we started sharing this on the air a couple weeks ago, and it's this density trifecta. So since we were just talking about the steadfast commitment, this is, so what you're staring at here, if you look beyond the victim triangle with the self-sabotage cycle, you see you. That's the master you. That's the eternal you that is the 0 point energy generator, holding open that Taurus field through steadfast commitment, focused awareness, and complete trust. That is the eternal you. That eternal you in the aspect that is here in this moment of potentiality is currently in a density cycle that is all about being born into the energy of the victim, rescuer, abuser. And it is right now in this very moment being sustained by the self-sabotage cycle of fear, doubt, and hesitancy that opens that Merkaba in the field of density, because you're that powerful. You are never not creating. So how do you command that? And I want to put back up again the March calendar and remind, well, you know what, let me put up this one instead. I want to remind you, this is the whole year. And you saw this is what's in the March calendar. This is what you're stepping into right now. This is that ever refining cycle of your ascended presence that is going to manifest prolifically this month through the energy, co-creative power, and momentum of the conscious awareness. Remember, it's an awareness month that meets it. So Shri, how, that's the key is, when we look at the conscious awareness that's on the planet right now, when we look at our own consciousness, where is that taking us?
Well, I think everybody has their own way of integrating into their computer and their heart what's going on. But the key here is that at the lowest levels of consciousness, and I'm speaking about below 200.
May I put your chart up again?
Sure.
Because I think we're loving his
And
chart, right, guys?
where humanity has been living for millennia. And you take a look at those qualities of experience. And from the 200 level is where courage first shows up. And now courage is what it takes to evolve consciously. Well, everything below 200 is a reptilian brain dominance. Your brain chemistry actually changes. Now, the higher we go up on this scale, and remember, the scale is just a convenience. It's referring to qualities of energy.
And those numbers are from David Hawkins.
Those are his. And that, so at 400, we're moving into a sense of understanding the world, moving into a sense of principles and intellectual guidance, say rule of law, that kind of thing. And so this is why the great statesmen, the Abraham Lincolns and as I said earlier, Einstein, were all in the 400s.
And I want to note that this is a really powerful, the 400s have more happening than anything else, because, and you can easily get trapped at 499. And I want you to pay attention to that, because we're going to go to the Pyramid of Spiritual Awakening in a moment. So you want to remember that spiritual activism is at that higher 3, just popping in the 400s. And it is understanding that starts to release the left brain, but it is also understanding that becomes self-entrapping through its own sense of grandiosity, which is where you start seeing a lot of that. And so those 400 through 499 itself is a very potent, powerful, and that's really what we're dealing with, isn't it, Tree?
Well, and that's what we want to see more of
Exactly.
within the density
experience,
arena.
right?
Remember, density is referring to the belief that I am this. This body, that this life, and that the notion of reincarnation and afterlife or the eternal presence of the soul are concepts, not known realities. So when we're dealing with concepts, we're
and I want to jump in. I want to put a caveat on it as concepts versus known realities until you acquire a certain level of consciousness.
Exactly.
So I just want to put that caveat in there.
So we're talking about what's going on in our world at times. And, for example, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he is vibrating as high as all the significant world leaders on the planet. And yet there are those that say, oh, he was an actor, a comedian. That may be something he did, but his soul, his light is as clean and present as anybody else.
And from a density standpoint of organizing power versus force,
yes,
you have a higher consciousness being held in an elected official that is destabilizing to an official that would not be carrying the same level of consciousness. And this is just basics, right?
So
how many times before because I want people, how many times have you met somebody of a different level of consciousness that is immediately uncomfortable around you, and you're aware that it's because of your level of consciousness, and thereby you're able to navigate that?
It's important to recognize this is not judgment. This is not hierarchy.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to share.
This is a frequency.
Exactly. It's about levels of consciousness interacting.
Yes, and as your frequency lifts, your reality changes. And so, it's just like you go back to your high school reunion, and many people say, "Oh, good, I'm home again," and other people say, "I can't relate to it."
Well, we've got some questions. The questions that are coming in are really good. Keep them coming in, guys. We're gonna let's go to these because these are really, really important, Sri. So, I'm gonna read these two questions together because I think they're kind of one question, and this is very much about the addiction to density, by the way, guys. Okay, yes. And so let me read these to you, Sri. How do I release the attachment to unhealthy toxins that I have been addicted to? How do the addiction releasement of people, behaviors, density, consciousness, and how do you navigate the shore moments? In other words, what this beautiful being is saying is, it becomes really challenging right after I seem to make a choice, and another person coming in, well, how do I trust myself? I make these choices and things get challenging. And read the newsletter. I hope you read our newsletter. This is exactly why we put out the newsletter, because we get it. Right now, that's exactly what's happening. You're saying, okay, I'm making this choice. And that's why Sri and I are here, because we want to make sure that 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 years from now, if you're just catching this material then, that we are here gazing at you saying there is no reason to be laying up at night doubting yourself. Right. And there is no reason to be stuck in this. And I'm going to put it up again. There is we're calling it the density trifecta. That, right, the density trifecta is what sustains and creates this self-sabotage cycle that of fear, doubt, and hesitancy, always needing to be a victim, a rescuer, an abuser, and forgetting that the whole time it's your mastery presence holding it open, just waiting for you to remember who you are, and that the minute you do, you become this in this moment. And as you do, the March experience is yours to command, and that superior conjunction of Jupiter can no longer stop you. So Sri, how do you navigate? After the first thing is by stop doubting, by letting that voice that tells you are less than to be loved enough by you to smile at it and go, oh, there you are.
Yes.
That's one of the steps, guys. Sri, what else would you like to share?
Your evolution is a journey of consciousness.
Absolutely.
And there is an aspect that many of the consciousness authors, so to speak, don't fully unpack, and this is something near and dear to my heart to share with you, and that is you have an ego. Now, the ego is,
and thank God you do.
That's your
Good thing.
identity for so long
It really is.
until you expand.
Right?
Your ego is all you got.
And thank goodness.
And so
Yeah.
we polish our ego, we train our ego, we admonish our ego. We try to become a really good person using the ego, that identity, as our vehicle for interaction and understanding. Now, the ego is part of individuating. My body's different than your body. I don't want to step in front of a bus. I need an ego to keep me safe, to say that could hurt. That's what the ego's job is. The ego is designed to look at experiences, gather data, and help you make choices. But the problem is the ego is a child. And so its level of understanding is very primitive. And the ego of a person at 50 on the scale of consciousness isn't much different than the ego of a person at 350 on Hawkins' scale. So you see, the ego is tied to density. Now, this is my segue to your addiction question. Where do you suppose the addictions are rooted in?
Well, and as they are, I just have to jump and say, as those addictions are rooted into that ego, navigating the inner matrix.
Yes. So we have certain universal aspects to our growth, and one of them is to learn to navigate our own ego preferences and pitfalls.
And to learn to love unconditionally, one of those 4 steps of self-ascension, that which we are. And so there is some work to do. When you want to let go of that addiction, one of the many things that you can do is start reading more material. Take more of our classes. If you have not taken Navigating the Inner Matrix, honest to goodness, get addicted to doing that. Seriously. And what you'll discover is, as you can love yourself more, I am here, as the Sea of Neutrality begins with thyself. You become that adult of that child ego. The body relaxes. It sustains. And so the question is, are you willing to do what it's going to take? Because it does take shifting the way that you're perceiving, because as Sri mentioned earlier, perception is the reality that you are co-creating.
Yes.
It is what you're bringing forward. So awareness, experience, choice is the ever-refining cycle of your ascended consciousness. So you're either spiraling up, you're spiraling laterally, or you're spiraling downward. The good news is you're still in the spiral. You can never mess it up. It's just a question of being consciously aware, right?
Now, I want to offer you a tip, and this is universal for everybody, any level of consciousness. Here we go. I discovered this years ago when I sat as a psychotherapist, later doing hypnotherapy with people, and my evolutionary path was just keep looking deeper, And so,
and he did.
when we have a habit that no longer serves us, we refer to those as bad habits, but how about we just call them habits? Because there is a payoff. Your bad habits give you something you want, or they wouldn't exist. So we don't need to unpack that.
And are they bad by the definition of what, who? Before you label.
Yes.
Exactly. I've had more people come to me. For example, many people who work with medicinal cannabis come to me with all of this guilt and shame.
Yes.
And when there's no need for that at all. It's about being in the perspective of that which is. Is it controlling you? Does it affect you?
Yes.
Are you a different person because of it? The key is to be in the I am here, higher conscious awareness of all that is. And you begin with thyself. And I do want to share again, if you don't have Shri's, forgive me, but his 7-day forgiveness, start it with you. Instead of looking for all the other names, why don't you just keep writing your name in? And every name you've ever known of yourself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, get to SriandKara.com. It's on the homepage. It's free. Get the 7-day forgiveness practice, but start with you. Because again, you will never love anyone more than you love yourself, and you will never trust anyone more than you can trust yourself. Archangel Zadkiel, all of the archangelic realms and the ascended masters agree, confer, and will share that trust and love are the exact same energy. And when those two can come together as one, then the ignition of that which is the illuminating presence of thyself.
Yes.
So let's breathe that in, because that's what we're here to collectively achieve in this moment right now. Yeah.
And I want to continue because
Please.
I really want to share this gift with you. When we perceive that we have unproductive patterns, those habits that we think are in the way, I ask you, what is it you want?
Right.
Not what are you opposed to? Sometimes one of the real values of an unhealthy habit is we get clear on the difference between health and vitality, and all of that. So regardless, what is it you want? And what is a new behavior that you can begin that is a stepping stone toward realization of that which you really want to be?
Wow, breathe that in. And I want to go back. I want to repeat what Sri said. You might want to write that down, right? What is it you really want? And invite yourself to go beyond the immediate materialistic, like, oh, I want money or whatever. Okay, why? What is it you really want, right?
That's right.
No, what
That's
we were going
it.
to share. It was perfect. Like, what will it really, why do you want it?
Yeah.
Go beyond that, because to simply say, I want X is a superficial reflection of density. That's the law of attraction. The law of attraction is a superficial field of density. You know, we have a question here about the magnetic field of the planet, and I think we should address that, because when you move beyond the law of attraction, it's the question Sri gave you, what do I really want? Well, why? Self-inquire, go in, get outside of the self-sabotage cycle, and be in that beautiful moment where you are actually having transcended that. You're moving upward, and instead of victim, abuser, rescuer, you're now living as the teacher, mentor, healer, right? When we live as the teacher, mentor, healer, we are at that higher state of consciousness that transcends all. And that is part of what's happening. We are at a moment where we have gone beyond where we have ever been before. Right? We are at a level of co-creative consciousness. That's why we're all here. That's why you're here at this show right now. And I want to use that question about Sri, the energy on the planet, to show really quickly the ascended numerology.
Yes,
because
no, this is dynamic.
it's
Look at
really important. Look at the ascended numerology for March, guys. All right, look at this, and we'll talk a lot more about this at next week's show. Make sure you're here. But number one, look at the wheel. We've got so much going on with the 6, and then it shoots straight up to the 12, where we are going into the infinite presence. We are literally at our 12 o'clock moment, where we're either going to break in half or unify. You see the unified presence there around the wheel. The capacity to unify this month is here. This is a profound month. And I want you to look at that superior conjunction of Jupiter, because it's the double 12. Remember that March 2022 is the 12 plus the infinite. And this week we are bouncing. We are going from the infinite down to the 7, and then we are going to come all the way back up. We are swinging. Imagine that that's a pendulum, and that pendulum is hanging from the 12 at the 7, and that whole thing's going to swing back up and hit on top of itself on Saturday. Now look at your body. Look to the right. When you notice that that 6 is what? It is your balance. It is your second chakra. Your second chakra, creation, birth. It's all about this month. It's now, now, now. And look at the 12. It's your star consciousness. My angels, this is the birth of the dream coming in from the higher consciousness. We have the capacity to really do this, and this is why the equinox matters.
Yes.
And so with all of our heart and soul, we're going to be there in March. Please visit unifyingvoices.world. We are just beginning to share what's happening this month. Make sure you're here with us live every week. Catch this show in replays and spread the word. It's the time for us all.
Yes. And each of us we are constantly choosing, and we're either choosing unconsciously in a repetitive pattern of repeating that which we have done before, or we're choosing to add in something that has a higher alignment. And this brings us to the universal piece about how do I evolve. The key here is to keep listening to your essence, your heart, your soul, the guidance, and add in choices that reflect from there, as opposed to choices that reflect from the egoic.
Yes, and I want to jump in, Sri, before we go, because sincerely, we have two really important questions here. And the one is, can one man's dark heart hold the world captive? No, as long as enough, and this is where levels of consciousness matter.
Yes.
Because as long as enough of us, this is why we've been screaming about the Sea of Neutrality, and we were out there since 2015 going, hey guys, you got these 7 years, this is it. And so here we are. One person holding the level of consciousness that I am currently carrying can offset close to 1 billion people. And so carrying a level of consciousness anywhere above 600 sets you in the capacity to start offsetting millions. So one man's dark heart can only hold open the density experience for those who choose to experience it, and may all have the right to be. And the second question we have, Sri, is how do you detach from people who are stuck in drama that are close to you without breaking their hearts? By simply loving them, they know not what they do.
Yes.
And forgive them, they know not what they do. And as you are yourself, you must love yourself enough to know that whether their heart breaks or not is the gift you are giving them to navigate. That when we own the sacred sequence of incarnation and that which we are, by being true to that which I am, frees all around me to be the same. May each honor each other's journey.
Yes. It's important to recognize that each being has their own path.
Yes.
And as long as we are in our truth, in our authenticity, allow the other beings to have their journey.
That is the Yoga of Self-Ascension. And I pray you go to SriandKara.com, learn more, join us on Monday Magic, be here every Sunday, and we're going to say goodbye to you with a beautiful little 1-minute film. We hope you enjoy it. We love you. No.
Humanity is at the crossroads of choice, and your choice matters. Our beloved Gaia, in harmony with the universe, is calling for humanity to choose love. Unify with voices around the world for the March Equinox 2022 moment. The answer to the call for all voices to come together as one. The energy of balance and restoration is the essence of the March Equinox. The unified intention of love is calling us all together to receive and share the inspired wisdom on behalf of all humanity. Coming to you from the center of our beloved planet Earth and current home of planetary Kundalini, the Andes Mountains of Ecuador. 3 days of sacred ceremony with lineage holders from around the planet, delivering a unified message for all. Artists, performers, and live music from around the world. This wondrous festival is a homecoming for humanity's heart. Join the live stream, learn more, and register at unifyingvoices.world.